Okay, Diddy got something in an appeal. I think he had a hearing or something. Yeah, he trying to get the convictions thrown out. Diddy still going to war now? Diddy still going to war now? I know they counting him out, but Diddy still going to war? You hear me? That's one thing people gotta understand. You know, when you go to trial and you fight your case, you got a lot of chances to come around on that appeal. Yeah. And if you got that bag too, you know, where you got, lawyers that's willing to go all the way in, it ain't over. Yeah, Diddy went at him. Let me see. Let's see what he say. Hit that subscribe button, man. Smash that like button. Diddy going at him. Let's see what they say here. Hit that like button.
A federal judge will decide soon whether to throw out Sean Diddy Combs' prostitution convictions. Now, the hip-hop producer is scheduled for sentencing next week after being convicted in July. Combs has been jailed for nearly 13 months already. He remains behind bars, and his lawyers want him sentenced to just 14 months, which would mean immediate release. Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller is live in New York now with us with the latest. So, Alex, what was his demeanor like today?
Well, he was in a great mood today as he entered the courtroom. The hearing lasted a little bit over an hour, but when he came in a tan jumpsuit, despite the fact that his team got a court order that was supposed to allow him to wear his own clothes. But he came in this tan jumpsuit, full beard and hair, both gray, but a big smile, happy to see his family members, his twin daughters in the courtroom, as well as some of his other children there. He had a lot of support there, and safe to say that the last time we saw him, he was much more nervous as he awaited that verdict. This time he looked like there was a huge weight off his shoulders.
And so what did his lawyers say during this appearance?
So this is the last appearance that we have before his sentencing next Friday. And what they're trying to do is essentially get the entire case thrown out to a degree. Remember, he was acquitted on the most serious charges that could have seen life in prison. This RICO charge, which is racketeering, but also these sex trafficking charges. And that's really important because essentially what his team argued is that because he was found not guilty of sex trafficking, the convictions that he does have are almost rendered moot. What he was convicted of was transportation to engage in prostitution for both Cassie Ventura and for Jane, a woman whose name we do not know. But according to his team, he was convicted under what's called the Mann Act, which is a 1910 act that they say is racist, that has to do with trying to prevent sex trafficking from occurring. But typically, the Mann Act is not really enforced by the Department of Justice unless it's done by an actual commercial business or with the process of sex trafficking. And because of that, he's not a convicted sex trafficker. They're essentially saying that this is not needed any longer. And they also talk under this Mann Act that they say that the male escorts traveled there willingly, that they were hired through a professional company. Remember, this wasn't some, closed door deal. They often called some of these dance companies that would bring over these men who were really just dancers that participated in these sex acts with Cassie Ventura and with Jane. And so under this, they say a lot of this has to do with also the fact that he videotaped most of these sexual acts. And this is where the First Amendment comes into play, something that we didn't think we were going to see discussed about this, Maritza. They say they frame him as a voyeur, saying that really, he is an amateur film porn producer and an amateur porn consumer, and that he videotaped and participated in these events through filming them so that he could take these videos home and later watch them. They used examples, things like the fact that these women wore costumes, that there was mood lighting, that he orchestrated and often told them exactly how to move during these acts. And they essentially said what he was doing was filming pornography for his own personal use. And so they say that this is First Amendment protection, and that because, again, of these other charges that he was acquitted of, that he no longer needs to answer for this transportation to engage in prostitution, because, again, they say that it wasn't actually prostitution.
I have a lot of questions about that, and I'm not a lawyer, so I will leave it to the legal analysts. But I know that his lawyers want him sentenced to just 14 months, but how much time could he face here?
Yeah, Maritza, I was vigorously taking notes. It was very difficult to follow some of the statutes and their arguments that they were making over the course of the hour. But the judge was firing questions at both of these attorneys over the course. And by the way, it was notable, Maureen Comey, who was the lead prosecutor on this case, has been fired. So it was left up to her team to answer all of these questions. So it was interesting to watch them try to pick up the pieces in a way without her being there. Obviously, she was the big presence during much of the trial. Now, he is facing several years in prison. He got away with, or he escaped that potential lifetime charge by being acquitted of the RICO and the sex trafficking charges, but he faces 10 years in prison for each of the transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, as you said, his team wants him to get just 14 months. He's been in there since last September, so by the time he gets his sentence next week, he'll be in there for 13 months, they say, with good time, good credit, good behavior rather, and time served, he would be out immediately. His team, or the government rather, wants to see him in prison for several years. They have not put out their sentencing filing yet, so we don't know exactly how long they're going to ask for, but they have made it very clear that they want to see him in prison for several more years. One other thing, Maritza, there are a lot of letters in support of Sean Combs from his family, people who worked with him, people he did business with, and from fellow inmates who have been with him for the last 13 months. He started some program where he's offering business advice. There were multiple letters filed yesterday in support of him from those inmates.
Okay, Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller, live in New York with us. Thank you.
Yo, so Diddy trying to get time served, and he trying to get the time back. He trying to get time served and give it back. He's still going to war. And, you know, that's his right. That's his appeal right. You know, I mean, we going to see how it goes. But, you know, anybody in that situation, you ain't going to give up. Yeah, you know. And we got to go off what he was convicted of. He was convicted of engaging in prostitution, transportation. Like, yeah, I mean, we can say whatever we want to say about him and what they saying, but what he was convicted of, that's what we got to go off of. And he going to war. And I think, you know, he might give it back on the appeal. Yeah, I don't count nobody out when they go to trial. You hear me? I don't count people. That's one thing I know about trial. Trial will definitely give you an opportunity to give it back. Now, if you one of them type of people that take the plea, you plead guilty to stuff, you just one of them type, then, you know, all you can look for is a post-conviction relief. But, you know, if you one of them people that go to war, that's a different. You know what I mean? You got appellant rights. And that man is appealing it. He feel that they went too hard on him. He beat the main part with the RICO. So he like, man, I'm going to war. Yeah. No matter what we say about him, he going to war. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button too. Yeah, he going to war no matter what we say about this man. He going to war.